How we doing, everybody? I know it's been a while since I've done any kind of film reviews, and I saw F9 and Black Widow, and like everyone else, I thought those were basically middle of the road films, sequels. So I didn't really get too excited about them. I enjoyed them while I was sitting there, but I didn't get that excited about them because, of course, they had such plot holes and things to that effect. But I just got back from seeing Snake Eyes, and I wouldn't say I'm a huge GI Joe fan, but I am a GI Joe fan. I mean, I was, to show my age, was collecting GI Joes when they had Kung Fu Grip. In fact, when my brother was born, my parents didn't want me to feel like I was left out or if I was going to be jealous in any way, and they ended up buying GI Joe for me that was in the space capsule as like a gift. It's weird, but I guess I can see the sentiment where they were kind of worried about how I was going to take having a baby brother. And of course, that was irrelevant. But also for the fact that so from that point, GI Joe had it almost emulated the fact that I had a baby brother in the world. So GI Joe itself has a little place in my heart for me throughout all these years. And actually, when Hasbro did the miniature version, where they started telling a story and they created Cobra and all that stuff. I got into it even though the cartoons. I used to run home from school and watch the cartoons, even though the cartoons were extremely far-fetched. Nobody ever died. There were bullets everywhere, and they would destroy the planes, and there would always be parachutes that came out and stuff like that. But the characters were always really cool, and I enjoyed them. In fact, let's talk about Snake Eyes in general. So Snake Eyes, the character, he doesn't speak. Okay, the storyline is that he took a vow of silence and doesn't speak. So it's funny that in Star Wars we have Boba Fett, and here in GI Joe we have Snake Eyes are both kind of helmeted type characters that you never see their face, but yet they're some of the most popular characters in the universe. And then on top of that, we have Wolverine, so it's almost like the bad boys, group gets, more of the fan base than the regular good guys. But Snake Eyes, the movie, I was pleasantly surprised with, and maybe that's why I'm excited to do this video. So it was directed by Robert Schwenke, which is a German guy. And he did Red. He did R.I.P.D., which I'm sure everybody is excited that nobody remembers that film. And he also did one of my favorite movies. So people actually will be surprised that one of my favorite movies is A Time Traveler's Wife. I absolutely love that film, and he directed that. So I didn't really realize that was, even though he had done the action films before, this is a complete kind of a dispersal from that normal kind of action film, because he borrowed a great deal from Japanese films. So old Japanese films, I think he borrowed quite a bit from their action and things like that. So we didn't, go into where I think that was Chinese, was Hidden Dragon. This was more, the guys all charging, they did where the Japanese films. And, one guy fighting 20 guys and, that kind of thing. But the woman that played Baroness, and this is why, again, I'm excited, because they set up the G.I. Joe world, but they kept it grounded, which I was surprised about because of the fact that the other two films were extremely outlandish and cartoonish, and they were pretty much made for kids. And I was kind of disappointed with them because okay, there's the thing about not taking yourself seriously, but, making a joke out of it. And that's pretty much how I felt about the other two G.I. Joe films, is that they kind of made a joke out of themselves. Where this one, they tried to ground it. They tried to really develop these characters, and they did a good job. I mean, it's not very often when you see a character or see an action film in general where you have no idea what the main character is going to do next. You keep wanting him to make the right decision, and more often he's not. So for someone to start with, you think is going to be the good guy, and he becomes bad guy, good guy, bad guy. You're like, oh my god, what are you doing? And I mean, you understand why he's being led around. And I'm not going to give too far much away at this point, but I'm probably going to go into spoilers a little bit. But the fact that the film kept you guessing about what the main character was going to do, that's very unusual for an action movie to do, to really turn the main character on his ear. So I was pleasantly surprised by that, and where the film went. I mean, I was at parts. I was like, what's going to happen? And that's what kind of excited me. So of course, Henry Golding is. I'm not have to do some research here, but I think it's his first action film. You know, of course, he was in Crazy Rich Asians. He was in Simple Plan. He's always the romantic lead. The one he did, the Christmas one that he did as well. You know, he's always the romantic lead. This is the first time he's doing the action role, and I bought it. I think he did a good job with it. And you know, thankfully there was some wire work, but thankfully it's not over the top wire work like the Kung Fu series and stuff like that. But Baroness, of course, we didn't see Destro in this. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. Don't think that Destro is going to be in this because he's not. But Ursula Corbero, she did an amazing job. And one scene, they had her in like 6. I know that Baroness always wears these huge heels, but they had her in like 6-inch heels. I'm like, ugh. So thankfully, when they had her do the action scene, she didn't have heels at all, and it wasn't like the Michelle Pfeiffer thing where if you look at her heels when she's fighting, the heels are gone. So she starts out in one shot, and then the next shot the heels are gone. But thankfully, it wasn't like that in here. And of course, they also did that in no Borderlands or no whatever the Badlands, Into the Badlands. They did that with Widow too. But anyway, so I was pleasantly surprised by this film, and if you're a G.I. Joe fan and you're an action fan, I definitely recommend seeing it. And even if you just like films where you delve into a character's psyche, where you are surprised about what that character is going to do, I suggest you watch it too. I liked the dichotomy of everything that was going on, and even the setup in the beginning was good. I mean, you understood the motivation of each of these characters, which again is completely unusual for an action film, because normally there's throwaways. Of course, they don't get into Baroness, and they don't get into Scarlet. I'm a huge Samara Weaving fan ever since I saw her in Ready or Not, and of course I've seen everything that she's been in since. I thought she'd do a better job as Scarlet, and I think she needs to work a little bit more on that role. She adopted a new voice for it, which was okay, but I don't know. I don't think she pulled it off as well as I kind of hoped she would, because she's an amazing actress. I just think that she kind of fumbled it a little bit. I don't think she knew exactly what she wanted to do with this character. But anyway, so really good as far as I'm concerned. As I think that my bar was low for it. I think that my expectations were low. I might see other reviews like, this is a piece of trash. But I think my expectations were low, and it surpassed those expectations. And I'm really willing to see what everybody else says, because, again, I liked what they did with the characters. Of course, we'll see what happens with the fact that Henry Golding, they didn't take the vow. I'm just letting you. This is probably a spoiler, but he never takes the vow of silence in it, so they can keep him, speaking into the next film if they do a sequel. But eventually, that actor's not going to play the role if he has to keep the helmet on and doesn't speak. You can get anybody to play that, then it's like Darth Maul situation. So where you just do whatever. So I'm gonna go into, if you want to shut it off now, I'm gonna want to go into a little bit of spoilers here, but overall, I like the film and recommend it. So for spoilers, um, I just want to talk for a couple of seconds. I'm not going to give that much away, um, but again, the swap. They also introduced Storm Shadow, which I really was wondering which of those characters. So I guess I think everybody knows that Storm Shadow is going to be in it, but I was wondering which character it was going to be. They kept me guessing, even though the color was there. But I was like, is it going to be him, or is it going to be somebody else? It's just a red herring type of situation. So I'm not going to tell you which character it was, but yeah. So Storm Shadow is introduced in it, and his motivation is decent, I think. So we'll see what happens there. If we get a sequel at all, who knows how well it's going to do. I mean, I'm there on a Thursday night, so but the theater wasn't that full. So I'm kind of hoping that the weekend does well, and if it goes really well overseas, which it really should. I mean, the amount of white white actors in this film, you can count on one hand. It's all people of color, almost 100%. Baroness, Scarlet, and a couple other guys, and that's it. Everybody else is Asian or black or whatever. The guy who plays the blind guy in here, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he's also from Spartacus. I always like everything he does. He's a very strong actor as far as I can't always get him kind of confused with the one from the British guy from Resident Evil, but it's not the same guy. It is the guy from Spartacus. So anyway, really like the film. Hope that you guys enjoy it too. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the fight scenes and stuff to that effect. He did this. He did a lot of stuff with drones. You start from the street, you go all the way up to the sky, and to the other characters on the rooftop, and it goes around them. Really good stuff. And then he has other stuff with sword fighting. It's a lot of sword fighting in it, which I love sword fighting. And he jumps them in front of the camera, so they keep landing face first into the camera, which I think was kind of cool too. So it's kind of like the reverse of what the Steven Spielberg zoom into the face, where he's this guy instead of you're bouncing into the camera. Plus, it takes place almost 100% in Japan, and so you have these huge landscapes and backgrounds and stuff like that we don't normally get to see of Tokyo and the surrounding areas that go into the countryside and the palaces and all that stuff. So I was very excited about all that as well, because I love that stuff. And then they did. What was the Great Wall? Okay, so the Great Wall is not a really good film with Matt Damon. However, the palette of it, the costumes, the colors, the landscapes make that movie worth seeing. And this didn't have as many of the bright colors and the armor and stuff like that that Great Wall did. But I like those kind of landscapes. And then they introduced this gem, so it does get a little bit supernatural, a little bit. But I guess it's G.I. Joe, so it's kind of sci-fi anyway. But there's this gem that's on fire, and it's funny that it's very similar to what I did with Destiny Aurora, the Vizirath War with the fire gem. But I wrote that years ago now, so it's amazing that there is something similar in there. But yeah, so those. If I was going to say some things negative about it, so it does go over the top at times, which I don't think it needed to do. There are some stuff over the top. There's some stuff with the pit, which they used twice. So they set it up to use it again. But again, it was a little bit more sci-fi-ish. And again, I don't think it needed to go sci-fi with the gem and with the pit and the and some of the other the fight scenes. I think they could have grounded it even further and made it, because they basically set up Cobra as being terrorists, and I think they should have stayed that path of just making it, okay, we're really good fighters, but this is a terrorist organization, and I just don't think it needed to go sci-fi. I think I would liked it even better if they kind of rooted it in like just a regular spy type atmosphere. Um, anyway, that's my only negative of it. Otherwise, I really enjoyed the film. All right, so I'm gonna give it an 8. So I was pretty happy with it. So let's see what all the other reviewers say, and I may be the one guy up there. Everybody else is like, it's a 4. It's a piece of dirt. But in comparison to the other GI Joe films, this was like an Oscar winner. So anyway, have a good evening, and see you guys on the next one. Remember to subscribe and post. Thank you.